We're talking about the abundance frequency. And so this, we wanted to make it a little bit more than a live. We wanted to do this as a presentation for you guys so that you can really get an understanding and immerse deep into what we're talking about with abundance and it being your birthright. Like, it's a flashy thing to say. It's really cool to turn around and say, yeah, it's your birthright. If you haven't got it, it's your fault. Deal with it. But what does it actually mean? Like, what does it mean that abundance is your birthright?
And also just on the note of, teaching these trainings that we're doing weekly as presentations, for you guys as teaching it, as taking it as a class, like we get it. There's all kinds of things going on Facebook. There's cat videos and dog videos and
oh my God,
food pictures and all of this like really exciting stuff. And it can be very easy to just get distracted by what's on Facebook. So,
totally.
For your own best interest, taking these weekly trainings, like really treat them as a classroom, because we're giving you guys a lot of valuable information that if you go out and you apply it in your life, you will start seeing results. And so as far as abundance being your birthright, right, abundance, manifestation, all of these words are things we hear getting thrown around left and right in today's, world of everybody being into their own evolution and spirituality.
That's right.
And the problem with it is, and this isn't, it's to bring awareness to you guys, right? Just because somebody is using the flash words doesn't mean they're actually working the flash principles, right? Doesn't actually mean they're applying what they are really good at talking about.
That's right.
And so it's just a matter of being mindful. Like Chris said, it's great to throw out abundance is your birthright and, oh, okay, if you don't have it, that's your problem. But what does that actually mean? Because there are a lot of teachers and coaches, and I use those phrases lightly just to communicate my point. They will take that stance with you, that if you are not attracting thousands or millions into your life, that there's something wrong with you, and you'll get a very judgy feel from it. I mean, the first person we ever hired as a coach was sort of like that. Like, if you weren't attracting the success she thought you should be, there was something wrong with you. And then she wasn't really able to help you figure out what that was. And so that's the difference in what Chris and I do with you guys and the clients that we work with and a lot of other coaches out there. We're not just going to point out, oh, hey, there's something wrong with your vibration, you're not attracting abundance. We're going to actually help you get to the root of what the block is and shift it so that it can start to flow. So that's living the whole phrase, abundance is your birthright.
Don't get us wrong. You are the variable.
Yes.
If you're not attracting abundance into your life, you are the variable. That part's not wrong.
Right.
What we're saying is it's not your fault, because we're not taught how to become the abundance expression. We're not taught how to align with the abundance frequency.
Everything in life goes against that.
And so what we are taught is that you have to create abundance and that you have to do it by competing against other people. Mm-hmm. There is a finite amount of resources on the planet, and that you have to compete for those resources. And if you play the game better, faster, and harder than everybody else, then you're going to get that abundance.
Or more sleazy.
And so, yeah, exactly. There's a lot of underhanded techniques. There's a lot of bullshit in the game that will say, if you do this, you will get that. The fact of the matter is, this whole presentation is about realigning the concept of abundance, and that it truly is available to every single person. And it's available to you as long as you do certain things. And those certain things are not in line with competition or the competitive plane.
And the certain things, you guys, go against everything you have ever been taught.
Yeah.
If this was easy, everybody would do it. If this was easy, everybody would be attracting the abundance that's waiting for them. But the thing is that it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy because you have to be willing to challenge everything you think you know. You have to be willing to admit that you maybe don't know. And you have to be willing to admit, and this is where most people get stuck. This is like super in VIP information, guys. This is where most people get stuck. Where most people get stuck is because it's too hard. They're not ready to look at what they have believed in their whole life and say, crap, this isn't accurate. And this is why you see many people clinging to very outdated beliefs. It's because they've lived 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years making this belief true. And if that belief is that you have to work really hard to be successful and blah, 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 they're not going to surrender that belief lightly.
That's right.
And guys, it's not that it's not hard to surrender the beliefs. It's just the ego makes it really hard. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of where in your life you're clinging onto a belief that doesn't really serve you anymore subconsciously, but doing it because, hey, you know, that's what you've built your life on. So now to admit, it's almost like admitting defeat for some people. And the only reason I recognize that so strongly is because that's where I lived throughout the whole decade of my 20s, was spent in that place.
Yeah.
I defended really crappy beliefs tooth and nail because they were my truth, and I wasn't yet, you know, open to the idea that maybe I didn't know what I thought I knew.
Yeah, that's right. And so let's start by talking about what abundance traditionally is viewed as. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that and really work out what it currently represents, and then what we do with the redefinition of it. So let's start by having you guys throw, I can see your comments in the group. I've got it open on the phone in front of me. Let's start by you guys throwing out there what you perceive abundance currently is. Now, I know we've done this on a lot of lives previously, but this is kind of like formalizing it. You know, we're doing this from a teaching perspective now. So what do you deem abundance is traditionally, not in the exposure that you've had with us or other teachers or coaches that have helped you redefine that? From the time that you were born up until, say, maybe 6 months ago, what did you view abundance as, and what did you view you had to do in order to get it? And while you're answering that, I'm going to share a story with you. So I started my journey towards entrepreneurship actually by learning to become a personal trainer. I went to this, to backtrack a little, was I just returned from my service as a soldier. I'd lost my shit along the way. I had a lot of overwhelm in life, and it had really exasperated that clinical depression in me. And when I landed back in my hometown, I thought to myself, all right, what am I going to do with my life? What do I really want to do? What's my gift? What am I good at? And I was really fit. I just come out of being a soldier in the military, and I'm like, okay, so maybe I could be a personal trainer. Maybe I could teach people how to be strong and fit in life. So I went and signed up at this personal training academy, and it was a private institute in Brisbane, where I come from. And they were all about, you have to show up to class in a suit. You have to wear a suit. They were all driving Ferraris. They had their fleet of staff cars were Ferraris. They gave their head trainers Ferraris, and they were all about the wealth. They were all about money. But they were all about getting this wealth from a very competitive place. If you weren't on the cutting edge of what you were doing, if you weren't constantly going back and relearning, taking more courses, if you weren't constantly upgrading your skill set, then somebody else was, and you were falling behind, and you weren't going to get everything that you wanted for yourself. They were very much about goal setting. But one of the things that I found was, when I came in with a goal board as part of one of my course parameters, you know, I go home, make a goal board, bring it in for your next lecture. When I brought my goal board in, one of the trainers sat me down and he said, okay, this is great, but you've got a lot of big lofty stuff on here. What are you doing to make this happen? Are you out of bed at 4 o'clock every morning? And I said, no, I'm not out of bed at 4 o'clock every morning. I just finished 5 years service in the military. Why would I be out of bed at 4 o'clock every morning? And he said, well, you're never going to achieve this if you're not. The early bird catches the worm. You know, the reality is, if you're not doing these things that we're telling you have to do to achieve success, you're never going to get this abundant life that you've just mapped for yourself. It's not going to happen. You have to follow these steps. And I kind of felt a little bit at odds with that. It didn't seem right. And so I finished my training with them. I got my certification, but then it took me back into a deeper dive. It took me back into another journey of self-exploration to try and discover the truth behind it. Do you have to be out of bed super early 5, 6, 7 days a week, like Gary Vaynerchuk says? Do you have to be constantly posting and driving numbers and becoming an influencer? Do you have to allow all this to unfold before you can step into any measure of abundance? And the answer is a resounding no. So what have you come up with? Some of the comments, what have you guys come up with in terms of what your definition of abundance is? Did anybody put any thought into that? Or are you just here for some flashy images and some Chris and Lynn's time?
Mhm.
Like, what this is about is implementation. One of the things I want to share with you guys is knowledge is useless. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge with application is power.
Mhm.
Knowledge without application is useless. So if we ask you guys to engage with us and to do something, then please do it, because it allows the application. It allows you to bring your mind on this journey. It allows you to take that knowledge that we're sharing and to expand into application of that. That's where you're going to get the results.
Yeah, you guys, something really, really important to think about as you're setting this focus to shifting your frequency and your vibration, right? Is first of all the idea that like you can't approach this task, we'll call it, of attracting abundance into your life from the 3D realm. So you can't just go out and start focusing on, let me get a new job, let me change my car, let me change where I live. If you're changing all of this external stuff without shifting the internal, you're not going to get the results that you're after. And so, like Chris just said, you could know all of this stuff. You could just know a whole bunch of really powerful stuff. But if you're not applying it, then your wisdom body is not coming along for the ride. And for something to truly become your reality and truly manifest in this physical reality, you have to bring all of your bodies, right? Like if your physical body goes and does something, but your emotional body and your mental body and your energetic body and your wisdom body and so on and so on, if they don't all come with you, it's not gonna ripple across all of those bodies and become your reality. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, does that resonate?
So T, I've got abundance for me is unseen amount of positive energy that brings you to a state of joy and happiness. Andrea, a life full of love and freedom is abundance to me. Giving something positive back to the world daily is also a part of that. Absolutely. T, that brings you to your path or desire in life. Yeah, 100%, guys. You're absolutely on the money. Abundance is not just about the car you drive. It's not just about the house you live in. It's not just about the suit you wear. Those are elements of living an abundant life if that's how you choose to express it. But that is not what abundance means. So let's punch along. Let's have a look at this. If you've been watching our lives, and I dare say many of you have, then you're going to understand what this image in front of you represents right now. What it literally is a seed in various stages of growth. It's punched through the soil, it's started to unfold, it's become more, its leaves are getting bigger, it's getting taller, its stem's getting stronger. This concept is abundance. What you're looking at right now is literally abundance, and you are no different to this. If conditions weren't right for this little new growth to become the most full and abundant expression of itself, then it will die.
How many of you garden? How many of you guys like to grow things? I love it. Chris loves it. We've got all kinds of stuff growing out in the backyard. I just built a really cool little planter box for some herbs out of a pallet. And so those are my newest sprouting things. And as someone, I really enjoy kind of growing things from seed. For some reason, it's just even more satisfactory when it's grown from a seed rather than a little plant I went and bought, right? Either way, I love the plants equally, but I really love when I grow it from a seed. And so, like Chris was just saying, this is the truth of the matter. I could plant the same seeds in 5 different containers, and 2 of them may sprout. One of them may not sprout. Another one might sprout 2 weeks after the other 2 sprouted. And so there's no for sure thing, right? You can do all kinds of things, like energetically. You can plant them at the new moon. You can plant them at the right time of the year. You can plant them at Imbolc, midweek, whatever, Farmer's Almanac stuff, right? You can start to layer in all of these days when the energy is perfect for planting. But bottom line, if one condition is off, right? If the soil gets too dry, for example, if the pH is too high, this can totally affect whether or not those little seeds sprout. And the thing is based on what plant you're growing, they all need different conditions, right? So just like all of us, you guys, we're all like different seeds that are here to do and grow different things and live out abundance in different ways. And so you need your own personal just right formula, just right set of conditions for you to blossom. And guys, I know across the board, one of those conditions is going to be taking what you know and applying it to your real life.
Hmm.
If you're not applying what you're learning into action and making it wisdom, your seeds aren't going to grow. You can't will. I could go out there all day long and stare and be like, grow.
But if the seeds are sitting on the concrete, they're not going to grow.
If I haven't watered the pot, they're not going to grow. If they're not getting any light, they're not going to grow, right? There's all these different variables.
Yeah, so think about this. What you're looking at on this slide, the concept of this shoot growing. Conditions are right for it. It's going to continue to grow. It's
That's
going
right.
to get bigger and stronger, and it's going to become the most abundant expression of itself. What does that mean? It becomes a plant. It becomes a tree.
A
It
flowering
becomes
bush,
whatever it is.
or
Yeah,
it bears fruit if it's a vegetable.
it turns into this.
Tulips, gotta love them.
So let's have a look at the idea here that none of these flowers are in competition with one another.
Nope.
You know, you could get into the whole concept that the soil only has certain nutrients, and once those nutrients are depleted, anything that tries to grow there is going to die or not do so well or not be so bright and colorful.
But that's where, like, when you have plants, usually the strongest ones are the ones that grow and bear fruit or flower, and the weaker ones will die off. And that's just nature, right? The stronger ones thrive and get what they need from the soil, and the other ones.
So think about that in terms of your life. The fact that you are here, the fact that you are alive, the fact that you are watching this on a computer or your phone via the internet remotely from wherever in the world you're watching from says that conditions were right for you. If you're not in this abundance of thriving color right now, it's not because conditions are not right for you to be so. The fact that you have grown, the fact that you have developed, the fact that you are an adult human being watching this presentation, regardless of how challenging, difficult, or much of a grind your day-to-day life is, says that the soil has the nutrients to support you. You're getting enough rainfall to support you. You're getting enough sunlight to support you. That is a fact.
You have a choice, and on any given moment, you can look at what you're not getting, or you can look at what you're getting. And when you focus on what you're not getting, and you focus on, and some of you will relate to this, right? You've got your seeds planted, but you're so busy staring over into your neighbor's yard at how much water they have, how much sunlight their yard gets, whatever other variables you want to throw in, that you're not tending to your own space. And where was I going with that? I just had a brain fart. Right? Right. What you focus on. And so if all you're focusing on is what you're not getting, you'll continue to get more of what you're not getting. Does that make sense? Right? Whereas if you begin to start shifting your focus to, well, look at the sunlight I am getting, look at the water I am getting, look at the love I am getting, look at the support I am getting, that will multiply. But here's where you have to be careful. You have to be careful not to just, if you are focusing over there, make sure you're not just then burying that with a positive, self-talk illusion. You have to acknowledge where you are. If there is fear cropping up, acknowledge it, honor it, release it. Because if you're just burying it, you're going to sabotage yourself.
Guys, I want you to understand a point. There is two things that's going to really thrust you into the most abundant expression of yourself. One is growth. The other one is contribution. Now, what I want you to do is pick a flower on the screen in front of you. Doesn't matter which color or where on the image it is. Pick a flower. Focus on that one. When you've got that flower, I want you to imagine for a second that that flower has now decided to shift to fear. Oh my God, I'm surrounded by a bunch of other flowers, and there's only a limited amount of nutrients and moisture in this soil. So it goes and signs up with a flower coach that teaches it how to suck more nutrients out of the soil, teaches it how to suck more moisture out of the soil. It's in the competitive plane now. The flower you just picked is now out of the creative plane, and it's in the competitive plane.
It's looking over like, I'm prettier, I'm brighter.
It's in total comparison mode. It's in total fear mode. And because of its work with a flower coach that's taught it how to draw more moisture and nutrients out of the soil, it's sucking all of it from everywhere around. So the flowers around it start to suffer. they start to wilt, they start to die off a little bit. It's vibrant as fuck.
But now it's all alone.
All these other ones are all around it are starting to wilt and die off because it's pulling all the nutrients out. And it, by its actions, has actually thrust the rest of those around it into the competitive plane where, because they didn't get that coach, they can't compete. They can't compete because they didn't learn what it learned that taught them how to suck more moisture and nutrients out of the soil. But if they did, even if as they're wilting, they're like, flower coach, come and help me. I need more nutrients. I need more moisture. What's going to actually happen is that they're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
This is the state that the world is currently in. Can you imagine for a second that a few people have learned how to pull the resources from the rest of the race and are hoarding them out of fear? And it's killing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's killing everybody. The flowers are not in competition with each other. They don't hire coaches to be better than one another. If they do hire coaches, it's to figure out how to be a more abundant expression of themselves. It's not to compete against their fellow flower. They're not saying, well, I'm purple and you're yellow, so I need to be brighter than you, or anything like that. That's just a nonsensical thought, right? But that's what we tend to do as humans. That's the trap we get caught in.
Mm.
So, the truth of it is, abundance isn't something that you have or something you surround yourself with. It is a state that you align with. It is a vibration or a frequency that you align with within yourself. Now, that frequency has always been there. It's always been present. It was present from the time you were born, and it will be present until the time you die. When you're able to step into the creative plane, you will be focused on two things: your growth and the contribution to others.
Mm-hmm. Instead of survival and scarcity. I would like to share a little story with you guys and to prompt you guys to reflect on where this may be showing up in your life. So back when pretty much, from the time I started working to the age of about 35 or 36, right? This was after I had gotten off drugs and after I had gotten sober, but I was very new on my spiritual journey, and I was still very much in the competitive realm. And I was working at a job and I was making tons of money every shift. I was bartending and waiting tables, and I would go in and I would work these long, crazy hours, and I was making, like, literally, I was making $1,200 a week most weeks. On a bad week, I brought home like $900 a week. And this was all in cash. This was all my tips, right? So I was raking in this money. But at the end of every day, I was exhausted. My shoulder was hurting. I was in pain. All of my chronic injuries would be flared up. I was like this all the time. Like, yes, I had learned how to breathe. Yes, I was doing yoga and meditation. But the way that my workplace, if I wasn't constantly reminding myself when I was at work to pause and take a breath and relax, I was going into that scarcity and survival mode and that pressure that I put on myself to be perfect. And oh my God, I got to do it all. And I'm running around the restaurant, juggling everything. And it was so hard on my body. And it didn't matter how much cash I walked home with every night. In my head, and this was the reality for all of my 20s, I had realized then in hindsight as I started doing work around my abundance mindset, I realized that all throughout my 20s, I lived in that very same thing. I was killing it. I was making enough money to live comfortably, do what I wanted, eat what I wanted, travel the world, go where I would, drinking, partying, and I had money to do it all, whatever I wanted. But it didn't matter. Every single week I had the same approach to my life. And every single week it was, I need to make money. I need to make money. I need to make money. And so you see, no matter how much I actually brought in and how much was actually sitting in my bank account, in my mind, it was scarcity and I was broke. I could have had $5,000 sitting in my checking account, 10 grand sitting in my savings account. And I would have been like, oh my God, I got to work. I got to go to work and work a double. I need more shifts. It didn't matter. See, and you guys, that is not living in the state and the frequency of abundance, right? Because killing yourself and stressing out and thinking about every single moment of your days that you don't have money is not aligning with your abundance frequency. And so I share that story with you to ask you guys, how many of you are catching yourselves in that frequency now, where it doesn't matter how much money is actually sitting in your bank account. You think I'm broke and I have no money. And you will say that when it comes down to, okay, can you invest in yourself? I can't afford that. I was recently talking to a client who we're working with intensively, and midway through the session, it got to the point that her and her husband and the family, they have been telling themselves, we can't afford a vacation. We can't afford a vacation. We can't afford a vacation. And everything that they were doing in their life was coming from a place of lack and scarcity. And then I asked her straight up, I was like, how much money is sitting in your bank account right now? How much money are you guys bringing in each week? Let's remove all the filters for a second, objectively. Do you have $4,000 sitting there that you could spend that literally is not going to make or break you? And she was like, well, yeah. And I said, so, and yet you're sitting there saying, you have money there that could take you guys on a vacation right now. But your reality is not aligned with that money that's sitting there going on vacation. Your reality is not aligned with abundance. Your reality is aligned with, I can't afford it. We can't afford it. And you guys, I beg you to reflect on this, because this is so, 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 so vital. If you are telling yourself the story of I can't afford it, it doesn't matter how much abundance or money you attract. You will still live like you can't afford it, and that will keep you in that lower frequency. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you start asking yourself, how do we make this happen? Ways start aligning, because then you're operating in trust and you're operating in a higher frequency.
That's exactly the way to make the transition, is by stop saying, I can't make this happen, and start saying, how can I make this happen? That's some straight up magic right there.
Yeah.
That is alchemy. That will transmute anything. The second you start asking better questions, you're going to get different answers. Mm-hmm. So just something that you need to think about. Mm-hmm. And why is my slide not progressing? There we go. Creative versus competitive. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about the difference between the creative plane versus the competitive plane. You were born into the creative plane. It is the truth of your reality. But if you don't choose to align with it, you will never get to experience it.
Mm-hmm. Because the way society programs us is to live on the competitive plane.
Yeah, precisely that. So let's talk about the difference between the two. The creative plane is a plane of focus. It is a plane of certainty. It is a plane of discernment. It's a plane of integrity. It's a plane of trust. It's a plane of alignment. It's a plane that allows itself to set boundaries. It's a plane of connection. It's a playful plane. It's transparent. It's objective, and it's humble. Now, there's some of those I want to explain. It's transparent because it's not fear-based. It doesn't have fear. It trusts. And so by understanding that concept, you don't have to keep your cards close to your chest, because what's yours is meant for you. It was created for you. It's designed on your path, and you're the only one that can experience that. Even if it's identical to what another person is doing, it doesn't take that away from you. Two flowers beside each other, they're not competing with one another.
And we really see that example getting played out all over the place in the realms of people who are wanting to start living their gifts, right? In this realm of like spiritual expansion and spiritual coaching. If someone is not doing their own work around this, they'll stay in that competitive plane, and that competitive plane tells them that nobody else can do what they're doing. Oh, if anybody else is doing what they're doing, they're somehow stealing away their business. Guys, and that's like not an awesome place to live. Like, it doesn't feel good to think that everyone is out to get you and everyone is stealing away your business.
I want to share a quick story with you guys about that. So at one point, I was getting business cards done for that personal training business that I started that I was telling you about. And I was referred to a lady who ran a printing business from her home. And she was really inexpensive. This was before Vistaprint. Like, this was the days before you could order something online. Right. You had to go and find a legit business, and then you had to give them money, and then you had to wait like 10 days for them to print this shit in wherever they operate from. So a friend of mine said, you go and see this lady. She's really cool. She does business cards, and she does a relatively good rate, and they're really professional cards. So I'm like, okay. So I made the effort. I booked a time, and I went to this lady's house where she was running a business from. I knocked on the door. and the door answers, and there's this lady standing there. She's got her hair up in rollers, and I mean, there's no judgment for what she appeared like, but her eyes were wide. She was maniacal in the way that she looked, and she had this clipboard in her hands. And literally, as the door opened, the first thing that happened was this clipboard with a thing on it gets thrust through the doorway. And I'm like standing there, and I reach out to take this clipboard, and she hasn't quite released it to me yet. She's still half holding onto it with an iron grip, and she's looking at me with these crazy wide eyes. And she says, "You have to sign this legally binding document before I let you in my house. I have prototype products, and if you try and steal my products, this form is going to allow me to sue you for everything you've got. This is a legally binding form." And I'm like, I just came to get some business cards printed. And she's like, "You cannot set foot in my house until you sign this document. And we can't do this business card transaction unless you set foot in my house. What are you willing to do for these business cards?" And I'm like, "Okay, have you got a pen?" And she's like, "Will you give it back to me?" And she hands me the pen, and she's like, "That's a boomerang. That means it comes back, right?"
Oh
and
my God.
I'm filling out my details on this form. I'm signing it. And as I hand the pen back, she snatches it and puts it in her pocket. And then she turns the form around and she reads, and she's reading through her own form to make sure she hasn't missed anything. She's checking out her own wording.
Oh my God.
And then she reads down, and she runs along my name, looks at me, looks at my signature. She's like, "Have you got identification?" And I'm like, and she looks at my identification. She looks at my signature on my license. She compares it to the signature I've just signed, and she's eyeing me, and she's like, "Okay, I think you're safe to come in now."
Wow.
And I'm like, "You know what?
Right, T? Seriously?
This is the price that I have to pay to get these business cards printed. I'm willing to do that." I'm finding this a little bit comical, but it's funny that this has been really apparent to me. This has been thrust into my face off the back of this lesson I had at the Personal Training Institute, where they were all surrounded by their Ferraris and their suits and their $1 million beach houses. And they were saying that my goal board, my vision board, was worth shit unless I was willing to wake up at 4 a.m., unless I was willing to trademark everything, unless I was willing to do all of these things that I have to do in order to be a success, so that no one can steal that success from me, that my vision board was worth nothing. And then I had this crazy business card lady with her forms and her boomerang pens.
How many of you have ever worked at a job that you have to like sign a whole bunch of agreements that you're not going to steal their confidential stuff?
You know, I'm going to go one step further off the back of that question. I'm going to say, how many of you live like that? You're watching this. Let's get raw and honest. How many of you live in that measure of fear? You create something and then you protect the shit out of it with trademarks, with business name registrations, and I'm not saying that there's not, benefit to doing that stuff, but think about why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, motivation is everything. It's not what you do, it's why you do it.
Because the funny thing to think about is usually the people that live in the way that Chris was just saying will constantly then attract situations where someone rips off their stuff or they're trying to copy what they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the reality that they're living on. So we had a job once and they were obsessively all about this. Mm-hmm. Everybody's out to, and guess what would happen? People would crop up and they would sort of copy and be very similar, and because that was the reality they were living in. The reality that they were living in said this is going to happen. So guess what? That happened. Whereas when you start to move beyond that, and like Chris was saying, it's not to say that you don't do things properly and legally to protect yourself, but obsessively doing it out of fear is going to attract more reason to need the protection. That's the paradox.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So when you're on that competitive plane, you tend towards aggression.
Yeah.
You're very possessive, very jealous, very dominant, very controlling, forceful and fearful, lacking belief that what is meant for you is actually yours and no one can take it from you. Work and results driven. Now let's talk about that very quickly. When you're on the competitive plane, your entire focus is working, doing, so that you can have. Mm-hmm. You're after the result. Mm-hmm. When you're on the creative plane, you're all about your own growth and contribution. What can you grow to be, and what can you then give from what you've become.
Mm.
Massive difference between the two planes. And it's very subjective. It's very arrogant. And that's the difference. And again, I would challenge you, have a deep look within yourself and ask, where are you currently still on the competitive plane with everything? Even if it's just fear, you might not have all of the rest of those things, but where are you still on the competitive plane? Where are you struggling to claim what is already yours? Or where are you just allowing it to become your reality?
And where, what area of your life is not flowing, because that's usually a sign that there's something having to do with that area. So if you're trying to create something that you feel is your calling and it's not flowing, it's not that, oh, the universe is telling you that that's not your path. Like if your heart yearns for that, it is your path, but it just means that there's something not aligned in there yet that you need to shift and release. And usually, by kind of focusing into these areas and getting really brutally honest with yourself, you can start to see where, because comparing with yourself with other people is keeping you on the competitive plane. Like if you're looking at what somebody else does and thinking about what they do better than you, or you're falling the other way and thinking, oh, well, I do that better than that person, you're comparing, and that's competitive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that you can't look at what other people do and take inspiration or be like, wow, I really like the way that they do that. I think I want to work more towards that. And again, because you're not doing it with the intention of, oh, if I go be like that, I'll get the results. The difference is, I really like that. I would like more of that in the way that I do things. And then you expand into your version of that. That's the difference between competitive and creative.
Exactly. So we're looking again at this little sapling, this little growth. It's not in competition with anything beside it. Its only thing in life is to grow into the greatest expression of itself, and then to share that with the world, to share that abundant expression with the world. And when it does, it gives others permission to do so. Indirectly, when we become the most abundant expression of us, we allow other people to become the most abundant expression of themselves. And this is the true pathway to saving everything that we're doing as a race, as humanity, is making the transition individually into the creative plane, because then it creates a snowball effect.
Right.
And there's our flowers again. No competition, guys. Make a commitment to let go of the competitive plane and step completely into the creative plane. I thought I had another slide in there. I'm not sure where that went, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is let's do a guided activation for abundance. Would that be fun?
Sure.
All right, friends. I want you to take a moment and get yourself comfortable. Get into a position that serves you, whether it's lying down, sitting down, comfortably, supported and nurtured. Doesn't make any difference if you're lying or sitting. You don't need to be able to see the screen right now. All we're looking for is you to be comfortable and to have nothing crossed. Open your arms, palms up. Open your legs and be ready to receive. Close your eyes and start to focus on your breath. Feel the breath come in. Feel it get full and turn. Feel it come back out. You're not looking to control the breath. The first act of surrender, one of the greatest attributes of abundance, is not seeking to control. Just observe. If it's deep, let it come in deep, fill up, turn, and come back out. Just observe. If it's shallow, let it come in, fill, turn, come back out. Just observe. Now I want you to start to direct the breath. You're not controlling the flow of it, you're just directing the flow of it. Direct it down into your stomach and feel your stomach expand. If it expands incredibly full, let it be full. If it expands a little bit, let it expand a little bit. Just observe. And in expanding the breath into the stomach, you're activating your gut brain, you're activating your intuition. And breathe out. Breathe into the stomach, expand. Breathe out. And now start to direct the breath into the heart, into your chest, feeling your chest expand as you breathe in. Again, not controlling, not dictating the size of the breath, just observing and just directing the flow of it. into the chest, into the heart space, activating your higher knowing. And I want you to start to feel the breath creating for you a bridge. You may have a full visual of what this bridge looks like, what it's made of. You may have no visuals at all, just a knowing within yourself. Either is absolutely perfect. It doesn't matter how this shows up for you. Just trust the process. Trust and surrender. Two of the greatest attributes of abundance. Breathing into the heart, allowing your breath to slowly return to normal as you exhale, and seeing the breath creating a bridge in front of you. And when it feels right to do so, I want you to step onto the bridge and trusting that although you can't see the other side, you don't know where the bridge goes, it leads from the external world where you spend most of your waking time, where you can hear my voice, into the internal world, into your inner landscape, and cross the bridge. And as you start to cross the bridge, you don't recognize a point where you get off the other side. You just trust that you're now inside yourself. You're in your 0 point. You're in a dark space surrounded by an all-encompassing warmth and darkness, and it's beautiful and it's incredibly safe. This is your inner map. This is your inner landscape, your creative plane. This is your blank canvas, and anything that you create here will become true for you. And I want you to start to see a door in front of you. And seeing that door will present exactly as it's meant to. Take note of what it's made out of, what shape it is, what color it is. And I want you to step up to the door and move through it. Maybe the door becomes transparent and you can step right through it. Maybe you open it and step through it. It doesn't matter. Step through the door, and as you do, you recognize that you're now in a room with another person. And the other person that you're in the room with is you. You're standing in the room with a version of you that is the highest expression of abundance. You're standing in a room with a version of yourself from another reality that has completely self-expressed their abundance. They are the greatest expression of you. Everything that you seek for yourself, this version of you has already obtained. Take note of what they look like. Take note of what their hair presents as, how long it is, what color it is. Take note of what they're wearing. Take note of how they handle themselves, how they stand. How do they present? And I want you to move across towards where they are, and they're waiting for you. They're waiting to talk with you. They were expecting you today. And when you get close enough, I want you to ask them for something. Ask them what you need to know right now. Ask them what you want to know right now. And see what message they have to give you. And once you've received your message, whether it's consciously aware within your field or not, once you feel that you have received the message from them, I want you to actually step into them, merge with them, become one with them. They've given you full permission to do this. And you step inside them, and when you do, you feel the power radiating from their cells. You feel them on an energetic level. Absolutely complete, perfect in every way. Every single abundance frequency has been activated within them. Feel that permeating through into your cells. Feel yourself taking on their structure. Feel yourself becoming everything that they have obtained through all of the time that they've been working on this. You now have full permission to download all of it. Allow it to enter you. Trust and surrender to this process. And just continue to breathe into this space, feeling all of this energetic frequency, all of this coding flowing through into you on a complete cellular level. And when it feels right, take a step back out of that version of yourself and see them standing there and they're smiling in gratitude for you taking this power, taking your abundance, claiming your greatest self for you and for the gifts that you can now bring to the world. And thank this version of yourself. Extend the most gratitude you can find inside you right now to them for the gifts that they've just given you. And I want you to start to turn and move back towards the door and step through the door back into your 0 point, back into your inner landscape, back into that dark, all-encompassing space, that void of your inner landscape. And then connect to your breath again. Start to feel the breath coming into your body. Inhale, not controlling, just observing. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And start to recognize that a bridge is opening up in front of you. And this bridge is leading back from the internal landscape where you currently are to the external world where you spend most of your waking time and where you can hear my voice coming from. And when it feels right to do so, step onto the bridge and start to cross back to the external world. You'll start to recognize the weight of your body sitting or lying, supported by the earth, supported by the abundant world all around you. Recognize the fact that you are sitting here or lying here is a very bold exclamation of the abundance that you are surrounded by, because you are supported and nurtured and loved. And start to feel your body, start to move it, start to wiggle your fingers and your toes, remaining mindful of the breath and being full of gratitude for the amazing gifts that you've just received. And in your own time, when it feels right to do so, open your eyes and come back to the room. Blessings. Welcome back to you. Welcome back to the most abundant expression of you. And perfect timing. Beautiful. Thank you for returning. Thank you for the experience. If you feel called to do so, share a little something. There's no obligation, but if you feel called to share what you received in that space, feel free to put it into the comments. If not, just reflect on it within yourself. Maybe go and journal about it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we would like to do is we would like to invite you at this point that if you have felt deeply impacted by what you've just experienced, what we've spoken about, or the exercise that we've just done, for you to, one, take advantage of a free resource that we have. We want you to come and take advantage of the Unblocking Abundance worksheet. So this worksheet is available at abundantlifemastery.com. The second you put in your name and email and click submit, you will automatically be enrolled into the Recharge Academy online and be granted access to that course. Please don't let this become a coffee table program. And what do I mean by that? A coffee table program is one of those ones where you go to an event, it's a free event, and whether you pay for their program or you get gifted a program, you bring it home, you bring the workbook home, and you put it on the coffee table.
Life starts getting in the way.
And you're tired because it was a big event. You say, I'll do this in the morning. I'll wake up early and do it in the morning. And when you wake up early, your alarm goes off, you snooze it. And then when you do wake up, you realize that you're running late for work. And so you race out the door and you glance at the manual on the coffee table and you say, I'll get back to that this afternoon. And when you get back into the house in the afternoon, you look at the manual and you say, it's been a really tough day. I'm just going to order some pizza and watch Netflix and just chill out. I'll get to that tomorrow morning when I wake up. And then the next day is a carbon copy.
It goes on and on and
And
on.
then a week later, the manual's still on the coffee table and So you take it from the coffee table and you put it on top of the fridge, and you're like, I'll get to it. And then 6 months later, your partner says to you, would you please clean all those manuals you haven't touched in 6 months off the top of the fridge? And so you take them and you either junk them or you put it into a file somewhere and forget about it. Don't let this Unblocking Abundance worksheet be one of those. This is a powerful tool. There is a good 12 hours worth of work in it if you take it seriously. We want you to do this work.
Guys, just something to share that's just an interesting point on our side of things, and a perspective that you may not have, is that something we see playing out. And look, this is it's a blanket statement, but if it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. If it does apply to you, reflect on that. I by no means am saying it applies to every single person who's going to see this, but something that we see so often, and I'm sharing this with you to perhaps shine some awareness on something that maybe you don't realize you're doing. We see what, like the Unblocking Abundance worksheet, right? We have something that's a free resource and we offer it out, and me, oh, I want it. And you get the access. And along comes a time where we do another resource, right? Me, oh, I want it. And then we look at things from the back end and we see all of these people who have enrolled into these resources and haven't touched them.
That's right.
Haven't logged in, no progress, because we can see that stuff on the back end of the platforms we work on. And so what we start to see is people, me, I want it, but then not actually doing the stuff that's in the worksheet. And then it's the same ones that we see 6 months, a year, 18 months down the road, still posting and commenting, here in the group, or posting on their pages, or just full of fear and complaints and why am I stuck here? Well, why am I stuck here? Because look, you're getting offered resources and you're not using them.
Right.
And if you wonder why nothing's changing, that's exactly why. And I don't, it's not a point of bringing this up to shame you and say, oh God, you're bad. Look, you wanted the free resource and you didn't use it. Tisk, tisk. That's not what that's about, right? I'm not your mom. I'm not your dad. That's not what I'm here to do. But as a coach, I am here to hold up a mirror and shine light on things that maybe you're not seeing yourself. And I'm doing that because I want you to be aware of it so that you can shift it. And if it is you, it's not about you going, oh God, I'm so horrible. I did that. What was me? Shame on me. No. What I want you to do is just have a chuckle and be like, okay, guilty. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm now going to make a commitment. Like if I was your coach intensively and we uncovered this, we would then work out, okay, what are you going to commit to doing this week? What are you going to commit to doing next week, so that we can start to shift out of this pattern? Because that's all it is just a pattern.
Yeah, guys, goals that don't have definitive benchmarks, check-in dates, and an end date are nothing more than dreams. And you will never manifest a dream. You will manifest a goal. And that's because you have divinely inspired, aligned action that you can work towards it. Now, that's the difference also between a coach that will strictly work in 3D, that will work in, a capacity of the physical world that will help you achieve things. They'll help you get good at the game. And a coach that is like a truly multidimensional coach that understands the concept of becoming aligned with the state of frequency, expressing that, taking action from that point of inspired action, and then achieving everything you want for yourself. So there's a massive difference between those two levels of coaches. Like Lindsay was saying, if you have got access to the worksheet, take advantage of it, work through it.
And like Tracy said, I've done the sheet more than once every time I get something new from working with it. And that's the thing too with resources, guys. Doing it once is here. The more times you do it, you're taking it deeper.
So I just want to shout out from the exercise. We've got absolutely beautiful, thank you, powerful and pretty emotional. I received another point of view in the project I'm working on. Beautiful, guys. Thank you so much for being immersive with that. And then, so finally, what we want to do is we want to, if you haven't already done so, arrange a time. If you are called to do so, if you are called to take this work to the next level, once you've started working through the worksheet, once you've either done it or you're working through it, and you say, okay, I love what I heard in the presentation, the classroom. I love the activation they did for abundance. I'm starting to notice significant changes. I love what's in this worksheet. If you're at that point,
Let's go deeper.
then let's go deeper. We invite you to book a call with us, with our team, and then we can get on the phone and we can talk about whether it's suitable for you to continue this work intensively.
Mhm.
There's a lot of ways to make it happen, and all it comes down to is the difference between competitive versus creative. And the competitive plane says, I can't afford a coach.
Mhm.
I've spoken to them before and I know how much they charge. Well, you don't, because we've changed a lot of things.
You don't.
the-
Rumpelstiltskin.
You don't. The reality is, guys, that's competitive mindset. And as long as that's the way that you're thinking, then you're not going to follow the instructions of our coaching anyway, our guidance. So the creative plane says, okay, cool. I love all of this. How can I make this happen? If that's where you're at, book a call, get on the phone. Lindsay's dropped the link, and let's chat. Let's talk about how we can get you to the next layer of the most abundant expression of you.
It's the well, you guys. You have an opportunity. You can prime the well and get all the water you need, or you can drink the cup of water out of fear and then have what you have.
Exactly. But if you do that, FYI, you're not just screwing yourself, you're screwing everybody else that wants access to the well.
It's your duty to tap into your abundance.
Right on.
Thank you guys for spending some of your time with us, investing some of your time into you by being here with us.
Jeanette, I tried to get in 3 times and it keeps telling me I have the wrong email address. I don't know what the problem is. I would like to do it. It keeps asking me if I'm a robot. All right, I'm going to check that out on the back end.
We can look at your login information
Yeah.
on there and tell you what you've logged in with.
Yeah,
Totally, Jeanette. Yeah.
I'll be in touch. So, guys, thank you very much for watching, for taking this time with us.
Have
We
a beautiful
appreciate
day.
you, and we will see you all soon.